So in the last lesson, we went and used a command shell, just a reverse TCP, as our payload. I want to show you what happens if we use a different payload. So what we're going to do here is we're going to use a thing called meterpreter. So we're going to set our payload, and in this case it's Windows/meterpreter/reverse TCP. And then we'll show our options. You can see we have our same options as before. We have our same exploit set, our same vulnerable Windows machine, but now we have a different payload set up, even though it did carry over the fact that we're still going to listen on this particular Kali machine. So now we're ready to exploit. Notice it sent the stage and it actually got it. But notice our command prompt is a little bit different. This time it says meterpreter. Now the reason why is we're not actually using the Windows command prompt. We're using meterpreter as our shell. Now meterpreter is great. It has a lot of capability. In fact, I'm going to go through a couple of them with you real quick. What we're going to do is start out with the question mark, which tells us all the things we can do. So if we scroll up here to the top, you'll see the core commands. We can send things to the background, we can get timeouts, just some basic housekeeping type information here. But what really gets fun is when we get down here. File system commands. If you're a Unix guy or a Linux guy, this is great because all of our standard Linux and Unix stuff will actually work. In addition to that, we can use our Windows stuff too. So we still have dir, we still have cd, but we also have ls for listing our files. The other nice thing that I really like is the fact that we can upload or download files from a directory. This is going to be really useful as well. Now as we move further down, we'll show you some other things that we have here. We can display the ARP cache, we can do some proxy settings, we can see the interfaces they have and figure out, because sometimes you'll get to a box that is used as a router and we can pivot from one to the other. We can also modify our routing tables. That's some good useful information as we get further into our hacking careers. The other nice thing we have is our system commands. And here are some things that you can do that will help cover your tracks, but they're pretty blatantly obvious. For instance, you can clear the event log. If I clear the event log, the system administrator is going to know he got hacked. The good news is, though, he won't know I'm the one who did it. There's a lot better ways of hiding yourself than just clearing the event log, but that's one way to do it. The other thing you can do is you can execute commands, you can get environmental variables, and you can actually grab tokens and steal tokens from another user. So if there was a domain admin who ever logged into this box, I can steal their token and then use it across the domain. Other things I can do include rebooting the computer, or showing the process list, or killing processes. If I want to get to that Windows command shell, I can do that too just by typing shell. Now, some more fun is when you get down here towards the bottom. This is one of my favorite areas, is the user interface commands. So one of my favorite commands is actually here. It's called grab a screenshot. You just type in screenshot and it will steal a picture of the person's desktop. So if they're using their banking account information, for instance, now I can have their checking account information because I'll see it on their screen. The other thing I can do is I can start and stop key scanners. This will actually start capturing every keystroke that person makes and sending it back to me once I type in scan dump. As we move further down, these won't work with our virtual machine we're attacking, but if you had somebody's real machine, we can actually stream their webcam so I can see what they're doing. I can take a snapshot of their webcam. I can start a video chat with that person or record their microphone and listen to what they're doing. Lots of different things we can do here. And then finally, as we get down here, we have things like get system. So assuming I attack the person using a user-based exploit, not an administrative exploit, I want to elevate my permissions up to the domain admin and up to a system admin. By doing get system, I can get that system level access. Now to get domain admin, I'm going to have to get the dumps of the SAM database. If I hash dump it, I can steal those credentials and then crack their passwords. And then finally, we have timestamp. And what timestamp does is this allows me to manipulate the time on files. So if there is a log file, I might go in there and delete a single line or two and then timestamp it back to the time before I touched it. That will allow me to cover my tracks a little bit better. So while we're here, I'm going to go ahead and hit ls and see where we are. And in this case, I'm in a directory with a bunch of DLLs. Can you guess what directory that is? It's probably the system32. But to double check that, what we're going to do is type in pwd, and you'll see that I am in the Windows system32 directory. Now I talked about screenshots, so let's go ahead and try that one. Screenshot. It saved it to the root file of my Kali box under this JPEG name. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually open that up, and you can see right there, that was that person's desktop. There's the hack file we made in the last lesson. So that's useful because you can start stealing information they have on their screen. So what else might be good? Well, let's look at the hash dump. So if I type in hash dump, I get the hashes for all of those users. I have the administrator, he's a 500 level account, and then here is the hash that's associated with him. There's websites out there you can plug that hash into and it will come back and tell you what those passwords are, because there's a way to break those passwords using landman hashes. Same thing here with John Sim. If we wanted that user account, we could then take his hash, pop that into that website, and come back with the username and the password. This is information that can be very useful to us as we move on. So this was just to show you some of the capabilities that you have inside Meterpreter. We're going to play with Meterpreter a lot more as we go into our Linux machine and start going through those vulnerabilities. But I just want to give you a quick introduction to show you that there's a lot of power if you use something like Meterpreter versus using something like a reverse shell TCP.